Which of these concepts or worldviews resonate with you the most? And how do you think it impacts the way all of us live, or how it impacts the way you live? So I'm going to be asking a series of questions that I'm sure many of us have asked throughout our lives, and I'm going to be giving you different perspectives from different disciplines, and I want you to state which of these most resonate with you. So a little backdrop as to why I'm doing this. When I look at what is happening in the world and everything with the wars and the crimes and the violence, just recently in Jamaica we heard of a situation where a pump attendant was held up at gunpoint and robbed, and unfortunately she was shot. And so there is this constant fear of even going out because of persons, other human beings who are out there who want to do ill will, who have an ill will towards other human beings. So it's through reflection and through certain amount of thinking and pondering on certain things why I came up again with this video to basically give some perspective. And so here are some questions that we all have asked at some point in our lives. Who are we? Where did we come from? Why are we here? And where do we go when we die? Now, I'm going to be reading from the different disciplines as to what the possible answers are for these questions. So for the first question, who are we? From the scientific perspective, or from the scientific community, we are Homo sapiens, which are highly evolved, self-aware biological organisms and social primates. But from the philosophical perspective, we are conscious, rational agents tasked with defining our own identity, nature, and existence. Now finally, we have the religious perspective, or from the religious viewpoint. We are spiritual beings, or eternal souls temporarily inhabiting physical bodies created by a higher power. Now, interestingly, my worldview, I'm going to pause a little bit to expound on this stuff, because my worldview, interestingly, leans more between the philosophical and the religious perspective. And I say that because I do not believe that there is necessarily a higher power that is watching over everything like that, like how it is stated in scriptures. But I believe that I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. I just don't believe that there's any higher supreme being watching everything and waiting to judge, in the sense as how they put it in scripture, where they say is God and he's waiting to judge us all and all of that. I believe that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and that everything that we do is an expression of that divine, what I call divine consciousness. So I just wanted to add that in. So the next question was, where did we come from? According to science, billions of years of cosmic expansion, abiogenesis, and biological evolution by natural selection. So according to science, it's a lot of trial and errors and evolution process. That's how we got here. Whereas according to philosophy, it is emergent properties of a complex universe arising through physical chance, causality, or metaphysical necessity. That sounds a bit more interesting in a sense. Not to say that the scientific viewpoint is wrong. Again, it's just sharing, and you decide what resonates with you the most. Alright? And then from the religious viewpoint, it is intentional creation, emanation or intelligent design by a deity, gods, or cosmic life force. I also believe, again, leaning more to the religious viewpoint here than the philosophical, but nonetheless, I believe that we come from a divine source consciousness, and that this source consciousness is light, and that this light has one agenda, and that is to create. And I believe that that light is pure, is the purest. I call it the true divine life giving source, the divine source consciousness that is of pure light, and that all things that exist and can exist is from that light, and that light is pure and without any judgment. There is no judgment, it's just creation. And in that sense, that source or divine consciousness is impersonal, meaning that there is no name I attach to it or any personalities per se. Nothing of human imagination, is just the light that creates and emanates all things and expands as the creation expands. So that is from my personal intuition, which might be drawing a little bit from either the philosophical and the religious viewpoint in some sense. But granted, I did not have to read a book or study any doctrine to come up with these things. These things that I now believe came to me in 2017 when I had my paradigm shift. Right, so let me jump to the next one now. The next one says, why are we here? The scientific view says that no, there's no inherent cosmic purpose for our existence. Biologically driven to survive, adapt, and pass on genetic information. That's it. So there's no inherent cosmic purpose, and we're just doing what we're supposed to do biologically. From the philosophical viewpoint, it is to construct our own meaning, which is generally called existentialism, because the opposite of that would be considered, or the scientific viewpoint would be considered nihilism, without purpose, without meaning. Right? That leads to nihilism, and that can make people more hopeless and more suicidal, because there's no quote unquote cosmic being that gave us any purpose. But from the philosophical viewpoint, it is to construct our own meaning. Existentialism, as I said before, pursue collective well-being or fulfill our moral potential. That's also interesting. I like this viewpoint. Now, from the religious viewpoint, it is to fulfill a divine plan, seek spiritual enlightenment, serve the Creator, or learn moral lessons. So it's very interesting. The philosophical and the religious viewpoint ties somewhat into what I believe. Why are we here? I believe that we are here, in simple terms, to live, to love, to learn, to grow, and to express the divine source consciousness. To be, I believe that we are divine sparks. So every one of us, quote unquote, are sparks of the divine. And in scriptures, Jesus said, "Haven't I called you gods?" And Jesus also said that in the scriptures, for those who take it from the biblical perspective, Jesus said that he prayed that his disciples would be one, as he and his Father are one with God. So he and his Father are one. He prayed that his disciples would be one. So in that sense, it's like, for me, when people talk about the need to pray to a deity to give them strength, I'm saying that we have everything that we need inside of us already. And to put it clearer, we are gods. And when I say God, I'm not talking the source consciousness. As I said before, we are sparks of the divine source consciousness, a pure, true divine light, true divine consciousness. That is my viewpoint. That is my perspective. That is my framework. And again, you can choose whichever framework that resonates with you the most, whether it be the scientific, the philosophical, the religious, or if you so happen to share my personal intuitive perspective, that's also fine, because I'm sure there are others who think similarly or share the same views as I do. All right, so let us move on to the next question. It says, where do we go when we die? The scientific viewpoint says that cessation of consciousness, destruction of consciousness, biological functions stop, and our physical matter recycles into the ecosystem. All right, that's the scientific viewpoint. The philosophical viewpoint states that there is non-existence, so return to the state before birth, survival through human legacy, or an unknowable transition. All right, so there's nothing much being stated there. And from the religious viewpoint, it is saying that there's an afterlife like heaven or hell, a cycle of reincarnation, or permanent reunion with the divine source. Again, I'm more leaning now to the religious view here, but not in the same way they believe it in religion or in the Bible or in their practices. Yes, I believe that we return to source consciousness. I believe that we return there to source consciousness, to feed source consciousness the information that we gathered while we were here. And so yes, I believe in reincarnation. I believe that we have been here many times before. I believe that when we die, we have the opportunity to stay in what they call the astral realm, or to return to earth, to come and to help others, to elevate. So I believe that we're constantly learning, and earth is the biggest school that every human being can ever go to. It is also in one sense a prison, and as I speak of that, the concept of heaven and hell for me cannot in my mind be a real place. And I could go on for a good while why I say that. To me, heaven and hell are states of consciousness, or states of being. Meaning that it's like when you say that you can have a house but not a home. And Bob Marley did sing a song that say, if you get up and you quarrel every day, you're saying prayers to the devil, I say. And that is leaning to the viewpoint that that person or those persons living in that house don't have a home. So they are having a hellish experience in that house. And so when they talk about heaven and hell, we are talking about states of consciousness or states of being. And so we can be in some bad situations, but our mind is still at a higher frequency, so we feel like we are in heaven, and that's the consciousness. So there's a highest state of being, and hell is the lowest state of being. So that's where the anger and the anguish and the lowest vibrational attributes that can be given to man are exhibited. The thing that make us some of us so vile, like as I mentioned before, those gunmen who robbed the pump attendant and shot her. And then our leaders, our so-called politicians who milk us, put heavy burden on us to carry, give us basket to carry water. But when you speak of these things, you're complaining. When you speak of the oppression and of the systematic downtrodden of people, you're led to believe that you are the problem. You're just not trying hard enough, when a system was designed to keep you oppressed and to keep you on this hamster wheel, working day in, day out. You can't find your way out, as assassins say. So heaven and hell, we are living, in my opinion, this is earth is hell in one sense. If persons are looking for hell, we are already in hell. There's nowhere else to go. But earth can be heaven. And that happens, in my view, if we all... It's like when you go to school, there's always a percentage of the school population that will graduate and make it to graduation, and they move on to the next level, and there is a percentage that will remain. And for me, I use that analogy to say that some of us have graduated, so to speak, from the root chakra. So I'm using some terms here that some of you might be familiar with, some of you might not be familiar with. The root chakra is our base chakra, the lowest chakra in the human body. These things are generally considered pseudoscience, but the fact is that we are energetic beings, and when we live in a certain in a certain way of living, like the lowest state that we can live in is just for survival, so we do anything to survive. That's the root chakra, survival. But you have the crown chakra that is next to or akin to what we call the heavenly thinking, when we recognize our own thoughts and we can recognize and make connection with different concepts and different disciplines and realize that we are all one. So from the root chakra to the crown chakra, there are different waves of experience that we go throughout our lives. And when we're in the lowest form of vibration, that is where we commit the most selfish acts. But the higher up we go, is the more we increase our consciousness. And so going back to the analogy of graduating, the more we learn and the more we understand who we are and how we are really related to each other, it is the more we see that we should not need to strive. So the graduation is when we recognize that we don't need to strive and fight and kill each other. It's more of a collaborative, cooperative effort that will make each of us become the best versions of ourselves. And these concepts to me make sense because if all of us can agree, even though we are individuals, we are still collectively joined, and we need each other to really survive. And in that sense, I say that we are one. But most persons want to live just by material things, for material things, kill and steal and hurt each other for material things. I've always said this, and I'm dead serious. I want to be rich, just like what 50 Cent said, get rich or die trying. I believe that 100, but I also believe that I would rather be poor than to hurt somebody, to rob from somebody, to steal from somebody, to get rich. You understand what I say? So I would rather do the hardest thing. I don't want to work hard for the rest of my life, but I rather work hard to earn my own and get rich or die trying doing it, or don't get it at all if I have to do it through some unjust means. And I don't need a Bible or any God or any Savior to tell me that. It's just inside of me, my heart and my consciousness and my conscience tell me, say, me not supposed to do things when I don't want other people to do to me. So yeah, so heaven and hell, that is what I was talking about as it relates to where do we go. I believe that we'll go back to the source, as I said before, and that when we go back, I believe that we can't prove these things obviously, but I believe that we go and we come back if we choose to. In some teachings they say that you choose your parents. I kind of have a problem with that. You choose your life, you choose everything, and you know you were given an assignment. And they talk about Akashic records and everything is in the Akashic records. No, I don't have the knowledge and information to divulge in those concepts, but there's a lot of them. And as it relates to who created us, in terms of the different books and the different stories that I've gone through, The Bible is nothing new, The Bible is a borrowed book, books of stories borrowed from different cultures. So, for example, in the Sumerian tablets or the Sumerian texts, they talked about two demigods or two extraterrestrial beings called Enlil and Enki. They are of the a pantheon of gods. They call the Anunnaki. And the story goes that the Anunnaki came here in search for gold, and that they found gold here, and they wanted their workers, they call it Igigis or Igigis, to mine the gold, but they did not want to. There was a slight rebellion. In different stories, some story by Zachariah Sitchin and other people, there are conflicts in how the story is told, but the long and the short of the story is that the Igigis or the Igigis came here along with the Anunnakis, the workers of the Anunnaki, and they did not want to work for the gold or to find the gold. So they found some lower species. They were not Homo sapiens. So you're gonna see something that is sounding like the Bible, but it's not the Bible. So they did not find, when they came in, there were other species here. Let's say chimpanzees, let's say species that had some intelligence but was not as intelligent or as powerful as they are. Let me just get a sip of water. So the Igigis rebelled in a sense, and they decided, okay, the Anunnaki, Enlil and his brother Enki. So Enlil was given authority over, let's say, over the earth. Enki was like the scientist. So through Enki and his team, they did a lot of experiments with the species that they found here, and eventually they infused their consciousness, or they merged their DNA with the species that existed on Earth when they came here, and poof, here came human beings. So in other words, the Anunnaki family, through Enki, who is responsible for creating human beings through a lot of trial and errors, is how, according to the Sumerian story, is how we came here. Does that sound familiar? Let us make man in our image and in our likeness. Let us make man. Listen carefully now. Let us. That's plural. Now, when I hear the apologetics tell you about the term about the Elohim and say it's a singular term that is just representing a them generally say it's a masculine singular term, even though it said let us, is still referring to single deity or single being. According to the Sumerian tablets or the Sumerian story, the let us they were talking about the Anunnaki. Are these stories true? You decide. Whether they are true or not, the fact is, that is the whole reason why I'm making this video. There are more than one ways to see, or perspective to see the world. There are more than one lens to look through. So the lens that you choose is the one that resonates with you the most. Are you wrong? Are you right? I rather choose to infuse from different disciplines and different perspectives and create my own through intuition, what resonates with me and keeps me grounded in reality. But I'm not done yet. I have some more questions that we probably would have asked, but not thinking about it in a broad sense, or don't think about it in general because of the different distractions. And trust me, we are distracted. Sometimes I even wonder why I bother go to work, because that's for another day. Let me not get into it. So, where did the concept of good and evil originate? That's the next question we're going to be discussing. The next one following that is it possible to be only good or evil? What causes people to do good or evil? Why do good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people? Now, according to science, the origin of good and evil is an evolutionary adaptation for social cooperation, altruism versus survival-driven aggression or pathology. According to philosophy, it is a construct of societal values, so social contracts, or the objective reality of moral truths. Religion now states that it is emanated from a divine source, moral law, or the consequences of human free will and separation from the sacred. I don't have a direct answer for this question, and so I was exploring to see what the source would give me. The source of where I got my information from would give me. And it just made me wonder, the origin of evil. And the reason I'm asking that question is that when you see some of the things some of us are doing, when you see some of the things our politicians or the government overseas doing, the Strait of Hormuz being closed because of the war in Iran and Israel, and how it's impacting all of us, and the lives that are being wasted in places in Africa because of religious warfare, Muslims killing Christians, and the genocide taking place there, as well as what is happening to the Gazans because of Israel and America. We wonder if some people just born evil. That's what me wonder. If some people just born just to kill, like robots. So I ask these questions because I'm seeking answers to why. Because remember, I said we're in a hell already. That's how I genuinely feel. We can have states of heavenly experiences here, but to me, in one sense, Earth is a prison. And I didn't mistake the word, it's a prison planet. But at the same time, because I also believe that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, I don't believe that this is the end of it. And this helps me to live outside of the nihilistic worldview. I lean more to the philosophical viewpoint of the existentialism, where I believe that we create our own purpose in a sense. And a part of that is me accepting that Earth is a terrible place to be, because we have so many different ways we can off ourselves. We can commit a mass genocide. We can literally kill ourselves if we want to as a human species. But we're killing each other. When I say kill ourselves, I mean we can do things to destroy the entire human species by the amount of atomic warfare or atomic weapons that we have. But apart from that, we have government bodies all over the world who are invested in making people suffer. We can talk about the medical system, like we see COVID that came and gone, and how it impacted the lives of small business owners, and not just that, but how it impacted those who took the vaccine, and the lies that were told by persons in authority. So we see the many things that make you wonder if there is a God, as to how people reading the scriptures and believe in their Bibles or the Torah or whatever, the Quran or whatever books that they read. You wonder if that God is for the good or for the bad, because you see evil upon evil doing every day. Right now, as you and I are, you're engaging me on this platform, somebody is being raped somewhere in the world. You ever stop to think about that? Right now, you and I on our app, we're easy, we're comfortable. So right now, somebody's drawing their last breath because somebody else is taking their life. And you might say, well, we can't stop that. I just life, just what am I gonna do about it? It is true that we can't change the reality for everybody as well. We can't change the way we see the world. If we want to change the world, we have to change the way we look at it. The famous saying, right? But I don't want to be. It's kind of difficult because they have this saying with them say, Lord, may be wise enough to know the things that I can change, and the ability to know the difference. You know what I talk about? Me just paraphrase it. But at the same time, you just also don't want to be so callous and insensitive, or feeling as though, oh, it not happened to me. This is a common thing I say happen in my interaction. If trouble don't come knocking at your door, you don't really care. Until somebody for you get hurt, that's when you start crying and call the police and wish things could have better. Me don't want that for reach. Me don't want bad things to start reaching my people. Me don't want one of my family members to get gunned down in the most gruesome way, or raped in the most gruesome way, before me start taking me a talk. When I see the suffering of others, I always say that could have been my sister, that could have been my mother, that could have been my father, that could have been my brother, that could have been my cousin, that could have been my auntie. It don't matter, because to me, we're all one. You understand? And that's how just also me live. You understand? But trust me, don't get it misconstrued. Not because I say these things, it means I make a roll over and play it. If a man come past me, cross way, and I see a way I can defend myself and take him out before me take me out, I have to do that. Because I still believe in self-preservation. Though we're not stupid in this, don't it? But I would wish that wouldn't have to happen. So I'm not one of those quote-unquote holier than thou think to say me can't mash hands type of thing. If me have to do what me have to do to protect my life and the life of those who love me, I'm not going to ask a question. Me have to do what me have to do, but me I say. But on a higher level still, more than one, that have to be the case. You understand me I say? Yeah, so the next question is pure good versus evil possible. Is that possible? According to science, no. Humans are biologically complex with evolved impulses lacking a static moral state. That's according to science. According to philosophy, this is historically debated, usually viewed as a spectrum or a failure to realize one's rational potential. Right? Now, according to religion, generally considered impossible in a mortal life, humans are seen as flawed, save for divine intervention or perfection. So in other words, the Bible will tell us that you're born in sin and shaped in iniquity, and that is why we have these things on the earth right now. So that's basically what this would sum up to. The Bible's authority, or the Bible's claim, is that the fall of Adam and Eve is why there is sin on the earth. Is why all of the atrocities are happening, all of the bad things. But they can't explain why it even extends to animals, because animals never commit a sin. And not only that, animals have to kill other animals to survive. So what kind of framework would allow for that to happen, wherein animals have to hunt down other animals just to survive? How can that be from a loving, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, and as some love to say, omnibenevolent God? And so I can't accept this framework personally, because for me this is lacking. You know what I mean? I can't accept this because this is lacking. So my answer, and I don't pretend to know the answer to all these questions. It's really like me having a discussion with you or sharing my thoughts on these topics. So I think that we come here as an empty slate. In one of my books when I published it, I talk about like a canvas. You know what a canvas is? I can paint on it. So the mind is like a canvas, but through even today when I was thinking to do this video earlier, I started doing it and then I recorded it and then something went, it just stopped, and that really kind of threw me off, and so decided to just do it again in this tonight. Anyway, so a part of me miss the innocence and the pureness of being a child. The innocence and the pureness of being a child. Listen to that carefully, because as you become older, you start to be corrupted by your environment, literally and symbolically. You start to be corrupted by what you hear, by what you see, and you start to do the things that you are seeing done in the environment. And so to some degree, all of us are a product of our environments. And so some of the bad things you see happening in the earth is as a result of the environment. I don't necessarily think that anybody is born with just to do evil, but sometimes when they say, oh, the bad things, they see some people, you have to wonder if them they really born evil, as I said before. But I don't really believe that. I just believe it's a product of your environment, and we are products of our environment. But if we have the wrong systems in our environment, obviously, if you don't grow up the thing properly, what you gonna expect? You know what I mean? But you have those situations where people grow in the right environment, but they lean to the dark energies. Because I believe that they're energies, and we can choose to allow which of these energies we want to control how we live. We have light energy and dark energy, and those are polar opposites of each other. And in order, we have to use one to control the other, that we can live a life that will be more uplifting and will not harm ourselves or harm each other. And so people who like the dark energy, they are the ones generally who go out and do things. Now, in other words, some people actually take pleasure in seeing the suffering and the pain of others. Some people have that psychotic mentality. But yeah, the next question was dealing with why does good things happen to bad people and bad things? Is that it? What causes people to do good or evil things? That was the next question. So, according to science, it's a neurobiology, genetic predispositions, environmental conditioning, we touched on that a while ago, and social learning. Yes, makes sense. The philosophical view states that the exercise of free will, habituation of character, or the pursuit of perceived values of self-interest. That's from the philosophical viewpoint. And from the religious viewpoint, it states that the influence of spiritual forces, innate human nature, sin versus righteousness, and accountability to moral laws. And this is where Christians will argue that is sin caused all of this, as I said before. Sin, Adam and Eve. Imagine the fate of humanity hangs on the wrongdoing or the sin of two people. Interesting, right? So the last question that I asked was, why does good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people? I'm sure enough to ask a question, because right now Trump and him friend them probably a laugh. And I could have called a politician name. Me not aligned to no party. So I'm not feel free to call Andrew name or Mark Golding. Me not care. Me not really business about politics, to be honest with you. Me not trust no politician. Me not trust none of them. But in the same vein, we have to. My thing is this, you see, while I understand to some degree that all governments are parasites, and I mean that literally all governments are parasites, without some governing body having to live with certain of us as civilians in this world would have more problems to deal with. Because some of us, as I said before, if there were no law enforcers, and if there were no prisons, if there were no governing bodies to at least have some semblance of justice, put it like that, And remember we talked about products of our environment. There would be, we would be living in a dystopian world. Let's leave it right there. So we would be living in a one dystopian world. So if we think things could have been worse, it would be if we think things are already worse, it could be far more worse if there was no form of governing body. That being said, I have a strong disdain for governing bodies whose acts impact the lives of their people in negative ways. Some of our our leaders are selling us out. We can't trust them. Real talk. But anyway, now I'm gonna leave upon that too long, is it? That's my seminar. I'm not a political pundit of any side. Just a talk, is it? Yeah, so the answer to that was well, I did read the answer to that already. So the next question was why. What was the next question? What causes people to do good? Or why does good clean up the bad? Okay. Did I mix up myself? I think the third question was what causes people to do good or evil things, and I just read those things a while ago. It was the influence of, yeah. So the final question is why does good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people? And the answer to that was random. If I did it wrong, I must apologize. The answer to that was for why the injustice, right? Random chance, according to science, entropy, and the lack of an inherent moral order in the physical universe. And then we have from the philosophical viewpoint, we have the nature of a neutral, indifferent reality, a reflection of systemic complexities beyond individual desert. And from the religious viewpoint, it is a mystery of divine will, a test of faith, right? A component of karma, consequences, or the necessity of growth through suffering. So all of these things are frameworks, you see. The next thing that I wanted to discuss on the final part of this video is what would you say, what is actually the best way to make sense of the world? And I had these as my possible answers. Is it A, logic and reason only? B, faith and belief only? C, apply logic and reason where it's most suitable and do the same for faith and belief? And D, none of the above. And the answers I got back were, for science, A, logic and reason only. Science relies strictly on empirical data, observable evidence, and the scientific method. It rejects faith as a metric for truth, as claims must be testable and falsifiable. Right? For philosophy, it's A or C. It says, while traditional philosophy prioritizes logic, critical thinking, and rigorous argument, many schools of thought recognize that human experience involves existential, moral, and metaphysical questions where faith or intuition might bridge the gaps where raw data falls short. For religion, it's B or C. Some theological traditions demand blind faith, but many major global religions advocate for a harmonious balance. So thinkers throughout history have argued that reason and faith are two wings on which the human spirit rises, using logic to understand the physical world and faith to understand the spiritual world. So the overall verdict would be C, apply logic and reason where it is most suitable, and do the same for faith and belief. All right, so that's pretty much what I want to discuss with you peeps. You know, honestly, sometimes I find it hard for just do the things that society tell me to do. Honestly. And one of them things that does go to work. You know what I mean? Go to school. But I'm gonna leave that for another time. I don't want this to be any more longer than it needs to be. So if you like the videos, if you like the content, if you agree, please like, share, comment, subscribe. You know, just give some support that these can reach more people and that you can get more of these coming in the future. If you like the songs that I've written, you can also show that liking by hitting the heart or the thumbs up button. It's very much appreciated. And so that is where I leave this for this evening. I just want to say that we're all on this journey together. We have different paths that we take, you know, but at the end of the day, if we can see that we are the lights that should shine in the darkness. And when I say that, remember I talked about the graduation, just closing on to that, the graduation analogy, where some people graduate from school and some people will not graduate. For those of us who have graduated from religion, from the traps that they have set, from the systems that they have set to keep us oppressed, from the shallow thinking, once you have graduated from that, I think the onus is on us to shine that light to the others around us, not in a cocky cocky way. We feel like better than now, just to help people to see the light as well. You know what I mean? Not to be like, oh, because the other day when I share my video on TikTok and I say, oh, I get pissed off, I'm really pissed off. But apart from I understand why Christians behave the way they do, because I was a Christian. But I also know that these same Christians are very intelligent people. And how did I reach here, having started the way I started? A lot of the things that we believe and the ways we live are based on our political and religious views. A lot of the wars that we see happening are based on our political and our religious views. So for those of us who are not tied to these things, we will recognize it when we see it. Religion and politics are the two driving forces that help shape world views that many people have. Do your research for yourself and see. But anyway, until next time, let knowledge be your path to true freedom. Peace.
Spirit matter differently still. Leaving me church family wasn't easy, even though some of them still tease me. Me have days when me ask, did I make the right choice? But there are other days when me ask, why pretend? Cause me and them version of God I know, friend. Listen, it's been 9 years now since I stopped believing. 9 years since I put an end to their deceiving. And through the years I've shed many tears, but also overcame my fears. Yes, in the church we find a sense of community, a sense of pride and some immunity from the cares of this world, from the diamonds and pearls, from the urge to sleep with many girls, from the wars and crimes, the fighting over nickels and dimes. Because to you, this is the end times. And as you look back and pray, you hear the questions, you hear the plea. Why turn your back on Jesus when he's the only man that frees us? Why go out in the cold just to prove you're bold? Why live a life of hope? How else will you cope? Why fly in God's face? Don't you think you passed your place? Well, let me have your full attention for what I'm about to mention. It might cause some contention, but no need to fast and pray. That won't change my mind anyway. Sorry to disappoint you, but that's not the life I want to live. I don't need a savior to teach me how to give. I've seen the truth and it has set me free. Yes, there's sorrow, but there's also glee. So please, would you let me be? Let me be. Why pretend to love a God that I despise? A God of man, but in disguise. Tell me why. Why pretend to give him glory when he only cares about his story? Can you tell me why? Why pretend I share his ways and that my soul yearns to see the days he eradicates all the gays? Hey, tell me why. Why pretend I understand such a cruel and evil plan to purge the sin from men? Tell me why pretend? Tell me, why pretend? It's been 9 years now since I started over. 9 years since I blew the cover. And though it's not been a bed of roses, I'm glad I'm done with all the poses. Their mind traps no longer take hold of me. Through the years I've rewritten my story, and no, it does not give your God glory. It instead revealed and showed me how much man wants to own me. But they refrain from taking a look at the crazy atrocities in that book. So they repeat the same old story, that all is done to his glory. And they ask the question, why leave the best plan? Why walk away from the best man to take my sins away? Why turn my back on salvation and choose the path of damnation? Why not just confess, man, and drop on my knees and pray? But if they have a heart in their chest, man, they would know he's not the best man. That is why I say, that is why I say, sorry to disappoint you, but that's not the life I want to live. I want to live. I don't need a savior to teach me how to give. Oh, I've seen the truth and it has set me free. Yes, there's sorrow, but there's also glee. So please, would you let me be? Let me be. Why pretend to love a God that I despise? A God of man, but in disguise.